This is a topic that I'd say it took me a long time to figure out. And the student being very curious this is one of the reasons why everybody who joins in, I ask them always something that's a win. That's not as governments become more and more corrupted, you start to see more rules, more strictness, more policies. Celebrating the little wins every day, whether this is a topic that I'd say it took me a long time to figure out. And the topic is around celebrate or celebration. This is one of the reasons why everybody who joins in, I ask them always something that's a win. That's not just for the sake of starting the session, that's also a way to train their mind as well to start thinking about it. And after a little while, almost every client that I know, before they jump on a call, they're thinking about a win. And now it starts to show up in their life. What's been a win? What's something I can celebrate? But I'll start this off with a quick story. I love this parable that I heard a long time. I read a long time ago. It's one of my favorite books, and it was in Super Coach. But I'll relay it to the best of my abilities here. So the story goes like this: a long, long time ago, in a land far, far away, and who knows if it's true or not, but there was this head monk. I don't know what they called it in the story, but head monk who just onboarded or brought in a new student into his temple. And this is a temple that's been around for thousands of years, and they've had their traditions and all sorts of things. And now this new disciple or student is going to be part of it. And the student, being very curious, at some point asks the head monk, what is that place? And he's pointing to this big hall with a big door in it, and it's some kind of library with all sorts of books and artifacts, all sorts of things. But he wasn't allowed to go in there, so he's like, what is that? Like, well, that has some of the most precious aspects of our tradition, our the things that we've learned, the original manuscripts of the books that we follow, or the book that we follow, and some of the artifacts that that are incredibly precious. So only the head monk is allowed to be there. And so the student, even though very curious, just looked at it and accepted it for what it is, and watched his master just be inside that room doing his prayers, reading, researching, doing all sorts of things. Years go by, decades go by, and eventually this young student became the head monk. And now it's his opportunity to be allowed to enter this sacred place. And he eventually enters the place, and he's so happy and excited, and it was a huge accomplishment for him to be there. And one day, as he's going through all the things that he needed to go through, he's going through them, and outside of that big library or center, there's a new student who's kind of watching from outside in and hearing. All he hears is crying and wailing, and he's curious. He knows he can't go in there, but he's like, what's going on with my master? And he goes close to the door. He knows he can't go in. He's like, master, are you okay? And the master, very nonchalant, he's like, just come on in. Come on in. He's like, but I'm not allowed to be here. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Just come on in. And he's not that strict. He's much more mellow. He goes in, sits beside him, and he's still crying. He's like, we made a grave mistake. We made such a huge mistake for thousands of years. Like, what happened? Like, I just went through the original manuscript of our book, the original that nobody else has access to, and the original thing that we have been following for all these generations, that we thought that said celibate, it says celebrate. It's like, so again, it's probably a funny story parable somebody made up, but really it points to something really deep, because in almost any tradition, culture, anywhere we come from, over time, when people stop understanding the deeper aspects of that religion, the culture, the tradition, wherever you come from, things become more and more strict. We also know this studying empires and governments. As governments become more and more corrupted, you start to see more rules, more strictness, more policies. Why? Because the deeper aspects of that thing is lost. Now you have managers of managers of managers of that culture that are trying to manage the thing that they don't even understand themselves. And then what they end up creating is something that doesn't work. And this is where we all end up. And I think it shows up individually as well, where after a while, we kind of pass on the same things over and over towards each other. And one of those things that we pass on is this thing about punishing yourself. What happens? As we grow up, we watch other people punish themselves, punish other people, do all kinds of weird sacrifices, and told to look at yourself one way or another. And we learn within that environment. Why? Because that's how human beings are. We just take on as kids whatever is taught to us, and we don't question it later. And yes, later on we do develop the tendency to understand and make sense of and decipher some things. But I love this quote that says, we question all our beliefs, but the beliefs that we hold truly dear. And so the real beliefs we rarely question. And the reason we don't question them because we don't even see them a lot of times. And one of those beliefs is that we look at ourselves in a very negative way a lot of times, even if we don't think that. How does it show up? Well, think about the mistakes they make. If you make a mistake in your day-to-day life, how does your body respond? How do you respond? What happens in your thought process? More than likely, you're getting thoughts like, oh, you suck, you're a piece of crap, or your body's reacting in a very negative way. But when you're actually really looking at it, the way life is built, we're meant to make mistakes. And in fact, we're meant to make a lot of mistakes so we can avoid catastrophic mistakes later on. We're meant to also learn from other people's mistakes. But a lot of what we need to understand is, how do we learn from these mistakes quick enough? And in the process, there's one thing that's been lost, and that is the art of celebration. And it's not just for the sake of feeling good. That's one part of it is, but we're learning more and more that it actually helps with your performance. It actually helps you grow. It actually helps you pay attention to things that matter in your life. So now that you understand the significance of it, that we all learn from other people who don't know how to celebrate their life, then we create a model around ourselves where we're like, you know what, I don't value myself, I don't value others, I don't value the fact that I'm learning from my mistakes. So we go into this thought process, negative thought process of why am I doing these things? Why are other people's better than me? Why do I suck at this? Those kind of thought processes, and then we act on them, and then our body reacts to them. It does not help long term. So what are some of the ways that we can actually start to look at this differently? And that's where three things I want to share before we move forward is what happens when you celebrate more? Well, when we're celebrating more, there's a technical thing that happens here. One of the things that ends up happening when you celebrate more, and celebration can show up in all sorts of forms, which I'll talk about. But one of the things that happens with celebration is think back to a memory that you can look back to. Think of a memory where you had an incredible time. Like maybe it was a picnic, maybe it was a getaway, maybe it was an incredible time with your team, maybe it was just a memorable time with a friend, whatever that memory is. If you really think back to that, what happens to what you feel? I'm thinking back to a trip I had with my family just a few months ago, where I got to spend time with my family. I got to do my work as well. I got to meet incredible people. I got to grow in that process. I got to do lots of adventures, and I feel amazing. That is a win. And what does that do? That creates joy. What does joy create? It creates space. It gives you more energy. That creates a moment of space and energy for you to be able to live your life more from that lens. And the way our mind works is we look at things through lenses. If our lenses, imagine those days when you're not feeling really good, when you're feeling miserable, you could have the same exact food that you loved, it won't taste the same way. Why? Because your body's literally filtering out everything through that state. You could have the same amazing people around you, but you will be like, whatever. You'll have the same good things around you, the things that you enjoy, the coffee that you taste, but it won't taste the same. Why? Because your mind looks at everything through that lens. And what we want to do is we want to look at it through the lens of celebration. Just like that memory that you can develop, you can do that with your day-to-day things. As soon as you figure out a vision for your life, as soon as you figure out a long-term plan, you know that this is a long-term thing. This is going to take a while. This is going to be a thing. And a lot of people, what they do is they wait for a long time until they hit that big goal. But here's what happens. As soon as they hit that big goal, they just move on to the next one. They don't even pause and stop and look at it. You know what? This is monumental. This is huge that I have dedicated a good decade of my life, or 5 years or 3 years or 2 years of my life, to this thing that mattered to me a lot. So it actually is a way of training your mind to bring that joy. And then the second piece of that is confidence. As you remember the positive aspects of your life about yourself, it builds confidence in you. How does it build confidence? Now, imagine you've spent the past few months dedicating yourself to a certain craft, whatever that is. If you're an investor, maybe you've been underwriting a lot. What does that mean? That means that you're developing certain skill sets. If you celebrated these milestones of, you know what, I underwrote like 10 different properties, I feel like I'm learning a lot, and you can register that in your mind, what happens? That builds confidence internally for yourself. What does confidence lead to? Confidence leads to action a lot of times. And a lot of people don't take action because they don't have the confidence. But if you're reminding your mind that you're doing a lot, it builds confidence. The third thing is sustainability, long-term sustainability of the thing. Just like I said, as soon as you decide on whatever the thing you're building, whether you want to create a family, a business, or whatever path you're on, that's going to take a long time. So how can you sustainably go towards that? And what most people do is they kind of hustle themselves into it, and every day they kind of push themselves to do that. But what if every day look like, you know what, we're one step closer to what matters to us? Or let's celebrate what we have in front of us. Let's be grateful for what we have created so far. What does that do? That creates sustainability for the thing. And so really looking at celebration as a way to create joy, confidence, and sustainability on your path, not just for you, but for other people around you. And I want to give three ways you can start to celebrate. One of the ways we actually do that here on these calls. The first one is small wins. Always think of what are the small wins that you have around you. What are the little wins? And we don't notice them most of the time. The fact that you can actually breathe and walk, and I've been sharing this with you guys. So the other a week and a half ago, I threw my back and I literally could not walk for 2 days. And I thought I broke something, but it was just a really bad muscle problem. And it took me about a week to get back on my feet properly. But now, because it's so close, I value so much of the fact that I can run, walk, jump. I can play with my kids. Like for 1 week, I couldn't do that. And not only it helped me understand that just that experience helped me realize how appreciative I am of the fact that my body works functionally. There are a lot of people who have problems physically, but you might have your body intact. You have the energy to do a lot of things, but you're not celebrating that. And the small little wins matter. The fact that I can breathe properly, the fact that I can move without any pain, the fact that I can do things, the fact that I can feel energetic throughout the day, the fact that I can focus and think. Like, these are little things. The fact that I can taste my coffee. Think about people who got throughout COVID or any other time when you get sick, you lose your sense of taste. What happens to food? Like, no matter how great the food is, you can't taste it. So little ones can also be in your, like, celebrating other people around you. Sometimes the celebration is for us, but like, what if you celebrated other people around you and built a culture of that celebration around you? Is that, hey, that's awesome that you just did that. And those little wins can not only bring those moments of joy, but moments of connection and confidence as well. The other one is big wins. Setting up milestones for yourself is incredibly important. So if you have a huge goal, let's say 2-3 year out, or even 1 year out, and this is why we strategically also plan out things, is that, and every milestone that you had, even if it's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks out, you're celebrating that big win. Like, if you said, let's say if you had a goal of hitting $100,000 in passive income, or 200,000 passive income, and you hit about 2,000 of it or 5,000 of it, that's a huge win, because that means you can create so much more on the other side. But if you don't acknowledge that, you always feel like, you know what, I'm like 150,000 away from that. and your mind always focuses on the negative anyway. So you're not training your mind to notice those wins. So setting up milestones towards big goals and setting up these strategic milestones and actually celebrating them, and actually maybe even taking out some time to do it. So for example, the way I do them is every time, and I've done this, I think the past 6, 7 years, 8 years, whenever I've gotten a client, I will actually make it a point to actually go away for a walk for like 20 minutes and just think about, like, one, my ability to create a client or connect with a client and support them, but them trusting me long term to support them, whether it's for 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. That's a huge privilege. I celebrate that on my own, but then maybe even once a month I'll go out with my family. Sometimes they don't even know why I'm doing this, but I'll take them out for dinner or something. We'll do something just because it feels like, you know what, this needs to integrate fully. What does that do for me? I get that registers how much that means to me. So I reach out to other people. I connect with other people. I don't look at the sales process or outreach process as a chore anymore. I look at it as a privilege. I look at it as an honor that I get to support and serve other people. But if you look at a lot of business owners, they might be like, oh, that's hard to reach out to people. Yeah, of course it's hard. And that doesn't feel good. I'm like, well, why doesn't it feel good? Because you've trained your mind to look at only the negative side of it, the hard side of it. But what about the honor of serving another person? What about the changes that you will get to help that person create? That's incredible. And then finally, the last one, probably one of the most important pieces of celebration, is celebrating challenges as a process for growth. So what does that mean? We all, as human beings, go through challenges, personal, professional. We're going to make bad decisions on the professional side. I've made enough of those on the investment sides, on the business side. Why? Because we're learning. We're going to lose money. We're going to lose partnerships. We're going to lose connections. We're going to lose clients. That is a part of, for example, business. So and normally when that happens, we feel horrible. And it's fine. You can feel horrible in the moment, but then how can you train your mind to look at that differently? The way I look at those, or I've trained my mind to look at those, what is the thing that I've learned in the process, and how can I celebrate the lesson? There's another entrepreneur that he actually literally calls them seminars. It's like life seminars. You go through, you make a huge mistake, a blunder, and then that's life's way of teaching you so you don't make a bigger mistake like that, a worse mistake than that. And I always ask when a client lost $100,000 in beginning stages of their entrepreneurship journey, I'm like, well, it's a great thing that you lost 100,000 now versus millions later, because that same lesson you could have gotten much later. And again, same thing with personal life. We make mistakes in our relationships. We act like crap a lot of times. We lose relationships in the process of growing as human beings. But looking at that and asking yourself, what is the thing that I learned? And look at why people have struggled with intimate relationship, for example, as an example. Why do people jump from one relationship to the next? Because they actually don't know the lessons within them. What they usually do is they blame another person for what they did, but they never take accountability for what happened to them. The only time they might take accountability is when they call themselves a piece of crap in the process. That doesn't help. What helps is to look at, you know what did I learn here? And what can I celebrate that I'm going to move forward from here on? That I'm never going to make a mistake in this specific area, because I've learned my lesson, because the lesson was painful, but I can celebrate the lesson in the process. So I'll summarize this: a very simple topic, but very few people take action in this area. And really the point of this whole training is for you to start paying to your life. What are the areas that you are not celebrating that you should be celebrating? What are the areas you are celebrating so you can celebrate more? Why? So you can build more joy, you can build more confidence, you can build more sustainability. And 3 ways you can do that is: 1, start celebrating the little wins every day, whether that's your ability to breathe, think, or move, or having great people around you. 2nd, the big ones, your milestones towards the goals that matter to you. Take the time to step back and actually celebrate and acknowledge and integrate that win that you've worked hard for. And 3rd one, looking at your challenges as a way to celebrate them rather than just looking at them and feeling the worst possible. You will naturally feel negative when a mistake is done or something horrible happens in your life, but then are you actually looking for the lessons? If you're not, you're losing out on a lot. But if you are looking for lessons and celebrating those lessons that you take forward with you, I think we can create better individual quality of life, businesses, better families, better organizations around us. Because guess what we do? We carry that culture with us to other places that we go. I'll leave it at that. I'd love to hear from everybody here. Fitsum, Peter, Gezu, if you can share in the chat, what was your biggest insight? Then we'll get some personal one-on-one shares as well. What was the biggest insight from this training? Starting to get some wins here. Sorry, some insights here. Biggest insight was how to celebrate other people's wins more or bring them to their attention, as well as looking for the lessons when triggered. I have recently started to do this consistently and I feel almost invincible now. Yeah, that's incredible. And again, the thing that I want to stress on is that once you learn something, it's actually the most natural thing you can do is pass that on to the people that want. That's encoded in our DNA. That's just how we operate as human beings, because we want to pass on the information that's valuable around us. And this is one of those most useful things you can do, is stop people and get them to recognize the things that are amazing in their life. Most people don't recognize it, as much as they will say, "Oh, I'm grateful," but they don't notice the little things that they've forgotten about. I remember a few years ago when I got like one of the nicest cars that I got. It wasn't like the biggest thing, but I actually sat down in that car when I was holding it when I picked it up. I sat down and I asked myself, I was alone. Like, do I feel just as happy about other parts of my life as I do about this car? And I needed to know that the answer was yes. That this car is not an escape from my life. And my good thing is, and the reason why I did do that check-in is because I've worked years to recognize that I'm not just doing things for the sake of accumulating things so I can feel better about myself. I'd rather feel better about myself and then get the things that amplify that, whether that's a luxury item or some other thing. But the reason why I check in for that is that I've worked hard on that side, and I can celebrate that win in the moment. But what does that mean for me deep down? And that's important for us to recognize. And a lot of people don't take a moment to notice why something matters to them and why it was important. And Fits and Share, I've been questioning a lot of things that I learned from my environment, upbringing, and religion. 2 weeks ago, I decided to deep dive into spirituality, and this aligns with what I'm learning and discovering. If you're able to share, please share in the chat. So what does that deep dive look like, Fitsum?
So the deep dive for me, it looks like is unlearning some of the belief system. For instance, traditionally, culturally, like there is, an association with making a lot of money, like money is evil or whatever the case is, right? Like I grew up hearing that, and I learned I'm limiting myself. Like literally I had this fear of growing my company or growing like my financial wealth, and then it's just like getting deep dive into that, and then unlearning, like money is not evil. Like it depends on how you use it, how you spend it, right? Like that can label it as evil. And then the same thing with celebration. Like I may have shared this with you, when people, especially Gazu, used to push my button every time because he made me right after when I graduated from college, right? Like so at 10, 11, 12 years ago. So and then when he says, "I'm proud of you," I used to get so mad. And when he tried to celebrate me, I used to, but now like I keep telling myself, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you for the things like you have achieved," and even to stay in that gratitude mindset is opening more doors for me.
Yeah, and that's such a huge thing. You pointed out something really profound. A lot of people have a hard time receiving.
Mhm.
Receiving, like it's the most uncomfortable things. Try this out. Like look at somebody in the eyes and give them a compliment. You will see that they will have a hard time receiving it. And ask them, is like, do you have any kind of, if you're close enough, ask them, do you have any kind of resistance in there? It's like, or they will say, oh no, that's not true. I'm not like that. We kind of deflect off. So it's not like we actually don't have the ability to receive good things a lot of times, and that's a part of the big problem for not receiving it. And especially, and so what you're doing, just like Gizu did that for you, is he's starting to change just the fact that he would say that, even though you might not receive it, but you're questioning something in there. It's like, why do I have a hard time with somebody saying I'm proud of you? It's not a negative thing. I say
My
I can
body literally used to resist it. Like
yeah.
I have a reaction.
Yeah, we have physical reactions to things, and especially things like money. Money is not just money. Money, people know on a intellectual and surface level is just a tool, but that's not how it registers in our psychology. It's a thing that connects to security for a lot of us. It's a thing that connects to growth. It's also the thing that runs the world. And we also watched a lot of people react to money in all sorts of ways, our family, friends. So based on that, our mindset is made up of how we should move forward. There's a lot in there. By the way, there's a recommendation for the if you haven't read the book, it's called The Psychology of Money. It's a recent book. Did you read that yet, Fitzum? You want to
No.
read that? It's really good. It's one of my favorite books on money. By just recommended this Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel. And goes into like it addresses both sides, the emotional side and the technical side of things. What happens in the investing world? What happens? And one of the famous quotes is that people don't invest because of some big boardrooms and stuff like that. People invest with people they trust and with friends, and parties over on top of napkins. Why? Because we invest emotionally. We don't invest logically per se. We can use logic, and we all have all sorts of weird stories about what money means to us. So it kind of follows that trajectory. Really good book. Definitely look into that. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Peter, sharing your insights in the background. I know Jesus in listen only mode. Thank you all for being here. On Thursday, we're going to be going deeper into our awareness. So this will be part of it, but we're going to go to different areas of awareness. We're going to do a longer assessment and see which parts of your awareness you need to develop further. This is the bedrock, the foundation of everything you do will be awareness. I think you're going to gain a lot from that coaching session. And keep in mind, the week after, we have a session as well. So we're doing it back to back this month, and then we have the rest of the month off because of the holidays. But I will see you on Thursday. And also keep in mind, tomorrow there's a session on mentoring side if you want to attend with Ian's. Until my next conversation, hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care, y'all. Okay. Bye.